Okay, then it's all right. Well, let's begin. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to this live session for our course, Literature and Life. This is the third session that we have. I have arranged the presentation in some order. Let's begin with the key points that we have here. First, we'll see the course outcomes, then course modules. Then we'll look at the first 4 weeks, then second 4 weeks, and lastly the third 4 weeks. And within this third 4 weeks, we'll see the novel, the 2 weeks of courses on short stories, and then we'll mention the kind of discussions we have had in the last 2 weeks, or last week alone. Then we'll see assignments and model question paper. First, before we begin our course outcomes, let's see the questions from the learners that we have received for this session. Basically, we had 2 questions so far. Just a few minutes back, we checked. The first question is, what will be the pattern of the question paper in the 29/4/23 exam in literature, in literature and life? We have given a question paper model question paper in our portal. We will discuss that at the end of this presentation again. We discussed such a pattern in the first session, the second session. Now we will do that again. And then associated with this first question is a point about the breakup of marks in MCQ, and I have added MSQ and the descriptive questions. We have this division of 80 marks and 20 marks. Totally, our question paper is for 100 marks. So we have MCQs in the form of true or false questions, and also single answer, right answer MCQs. And then we have MSQs where we have multiple answers in one section. So altogether, we have 80 marks for this. These are objective type questions. And so you have to just select the answer. And in the case of the descriptive questions, you have to write on the screen. You have to type your answer on the screen. There will be 4 questions. Each question carries 5 marks. So 4 questions, 20 marks. Some passage from the course will be given. Mostly we have given passages from the course. Occasionally we may go out of the course and give some prose piece or poetry piece, some short story, some drama, passage from a drama. Like this will give. You have to analyze and write your answers. We have given clear indications of how you should analyze and give your answer. The word limit is 150 words. We will come back to this pattern again at the end. The second question is about the descriptive type, whether we will be asked to analyze a poem or we have to do poetry comprehension. In the case of the assignment, last assignment, we gave 2 questions. They are more like comprehension questions. But in the examination, in the end semester examination, no such comprehension question will be there. You have to answer, that is, you have to analyze a prose piece, a poem, a passage from a drama, and also a passage from a short story. We will not give a passage from a novel because it's a huge one. So it is not really advisable for us to have a passage from a novel, although it is possible to do it. So 4 passages will be there. One has to read the passage and analyze the passage according to the norms or the parameters that we have used in our course, like thematic contrast, a literary device, human relationship, and lessons for our life. So one more is there about language, thematic contrast, linguistic analysis, or rather, let's say, put it this way, thematic analysis, linguistic analysis, literary analysis, and then analysis of human relationships. These are the four major headings under which the students are expected to analyze the given passage and give their answers within 150 words, not more than that. The screen will not allow you to type more than 150 words. Now, are there some questions before we move to yeah, I see some chat remarks. Okay. Let me see. There are many participants now. Are there some questions which you need to ask before we go to our presentation? If there are some questions, I'll be happy to answer before we move to our organized presentation. Are there participants who want to ask any question regarding this question paper pattern? We will have some more details at the end. Anyone? Okay, we'll proceed to our organized presentation.
Maybe after we go through all the slides and the discussion that you want to, the doubts will be cleared. So I don't want to ask all those things prior to your presentation, sir.
Yes, after this presentation, you can ask. No problem.
Yes.
First, we have 5 course outcomes. First of all, the main objective or outcome of this course is to learn to appreciate the close relationship between literature and life. Literature is not far away from life. Life is not far away from literature because they are interconnected. They influence each other. Writers choose subjects from life and present it in their poetry, drama, novel, short story, or whatever form of writing they choose to write. And literature also guides people in some ways in real life too. Then, one of the major problems that we have in our 21st century, we had this in the 20th century also, alienation or separation from other human beings. We feel lonely, we feel depressed, we want to sometimes, when we don't find some meaning in our life, we want to commit suicide, or we have some negative thoughts, take revenge on somebody. We develop some destructive thoughts. So when we read some good pieces of literature, it's like this literature is like a medicine which prevents us from going in the negative way in our life. Then another outcome that we expect from this course is that we should be able to develop good relationships with people, whether they are close relatives or distant relatives or some strangers or some peers working in our offices. That means we can understand people a little more when we read literature. And further, when we read literature, we understand that the organization of our society into some structure, whether social structure or political structure, economic structure, whatever it is, these are all arbitrary. We have found them over a period of time to be convenient. So after some time, whenever we find something is inconvenient, we change that organization. And it has happened in all cases. And the last one is, we face some difficulties, challenging situations in our life from our family, from society, or in workplace environments. So how do we deal with them? We have some examples from this course. If you read them, you can really appreciate them, particularly the ones on drama and also novel plus short stories. They all have some examples of situations where we have challenges from many quarters in our life. We can learn from them and help ourselves. So now we move on to the course modules. This one tells us about the overall course module, like introduction, prose, poetry, drama, one-act play, novel, short story, and discussion. And under each one, we have some topics. Like in the introduction, we have discussed the elements of literature. What is prose, or what is an essay? What is a poem or a piece of poetry? What is drama? What is novel? What is short story? And what are the major components that make up these different kinds of literature? We have discussed them in the first 2 weeks. And then in the third and fourth week, we have addressed some prose pieces from Abdul Kalam, from Chetan Bhagat, Amish Tripathi, R.K. Narayan, George Orwell, John Didion, William Singer, Virginia Woolf. You will see a collection of writers from both the West and also the East, particularly India. Some emphasis on Indian context given in the prose section. In poetry also, we have selections from British literature, American literature, and Indian literature, including one diasporic writer like Sujata Bhatt. And we have some examples. We will see them when we go to the first week's module. Here, the major one that we have in drama is a play by Girish Karnad. It is called Tughlaq. It is a historical play, and it has a lot to offer us how to live our life. Similarly, we have two one-act plays, one by the Russian dramatist Anton Chekhov, that is called The Bear, and another one by the Irish playwright J.M. Singh, which is called Riders to the Sea. Then again, we have an Indian focus on the novel, Arvind Adiga's novel, The White Tiger. If we read this novel, we can understand what kind of society that we have today and how we are living in this globalized world, how we are impacted by the globalization that has occurred in our country. And we also have some short stories from both the West and the East. And again, we have some focus on Indian writing and also diasporic writing. For example, Joshi, Ruskin Bond, Anjana Apachana. These are writers belonging to India and Indian diaspora. And we have some masters of short stories from France, from Britain, from Germany, from Brazil, and also from US, that is Isaac Asimov. The last writer, Isaac Asimov, is a good example of science fiction writing. It also deals with some important theme in our life. And the last one has some discussions with teachers teaching prose, poetry, drama, and novel in local colleges in Chennai. I thought my own perspective is not enough. I should add some more perspectives from our colleagues, and so the students would be benefited. So now we come to the first 4 weeks, and we have covered these 16 topics in the first 4 weeks. What is literature? What is life? Literature is a subjective expression of an objective reality. That's how I would always define it. Literature is basically or fundamentally an expression of life through the medium of words. Some quotation from a critic called W.H. Hudson. So each one will have a definition of literature in his or her own way, but it starts from a human being and from the experience, personal experience or imaginative experience, and it requires some kind of language and some kind of form, some kind of structure. And we have different kinds of literature, so it takes different forms, like poetry, prose, drama, novel, and so on. Similarly, we have asked a serious question: what is life? Is it a meaningful life or meaningless life? What is life? What does life mean? That's a big question, philosophical question. Biological answers we can give. We can differentiate life like animal life, plant life, or human life, and things like that we can differentiate. But exactly what is life is a question that we may not be able to answer 100% correct, because each one will understand life differently. Every human being will understand life differently. But two varieties of answers you can have. Is life meaningful? Is life not meaningful? So some people will find fulfillment in their life, so that will become meaningful for them. For some others, they may not find fulfillment in their life, so it may be meaningless. And the second one, that is life is absurd, is the dominant thought in the 20th century. That's why we have a drama called absurd drama. Life is meaningless, so writers have written absurd drama, that is meaningless drama. But it makes sense. Even the absurd drama, which is supposed to have no meaning, makes sense or gives meaning to people when they read it or when they watch it on theater. Then we have explored the relationship between literature and life in detail, and also we have specifically mentioned some approach to literature and life, how we will deal with the entire course, all the selections that we have, like thematic contrast, linguistic analysis, literary analysis, human relationships, lessons for us, or some takeaways from each one, or some comparative study of writers. All that we have discussed in this particular lecture. Then, when it comes to these different genre of literature, like essay, poetry, drama, novel, short story, we have defined them, we have classified them, we have given them the features of various literary kinds, and then we have moved on to specific literary pieces in prose, like Abdul Kalam. Look at the titles of these writers. When I failed. Why do we start with failure? Because life is a series of failures. Only occasionally we come across some successes. Kalam tells us failure is a prerequisite to success. So that kind of understanding, that kind of lesson for us, we learn from Abdul Kalam. There are so many things. For the sake of time, I will just point out one or 2 points and then move on to other writers. Like Chetan Bhagat has an essay called My Stupid Suicide Plan. And finally, he realizes that when he looks at a street dog, when it fights for survival, and he learns, why not me? I am an educated person, just doing education or studying in an IIT. Why should I do like, or preparing for an IIT course? Why should I commit suicide? He asks himself, and enables all of us to understand that God has not given a power of button for us. If he had given us, we could just press it and commit suicide. But in our case, we don't have any power of button like a cell phone. So why should you do that? That's a question that he asks. Then we move on to R.K. Narayan. He has written about toasted English. We have also given some importance to language, because language is a medium of writing, literature. So what is language? How is it used by people in different parts of the world, or how writers use them? So in Britain, English was born in England, and then it moved to migrated to America and the rest of the world. And wherever English went, it has changed its form. So there is a difference between American English and British English that is highlighted by R.K. Narayan in his essay. He wants us to have a specific brand called Bharat, brand of English, and he himself is an exemplar of that. Through his novels, short stories, and essays, he has given an identity for Indian English, or Bharat English, as he calls it. Next, we have Amish Tripathi. He explains why he writes. He writes because he has a passion. His soul has prepared him to write novels, so he has written. And then we have George Orwell, who is a great writer who has dealt with the English language and how it is used in the modern world. And he tells us truth depends on the use of language. So we must use a free, fair, pure, simple, truthful language, clear, clean language. Similarly, William Zinsser also talks about writing English as a second language. Particularly, he writes for people who are from different countries who use English as a second language. They may not have English as their native language or mother tongue. There are some differences between English and the other languages. So when we write in English, we must write like English people, not like people having mother tongue like Arabic mother tongue, or some other African language or Indian language. We also deal with why I write in the case of Joan Didion, because we have so much of literature in the world, but do we know the reason why writers write? That's why we have these two essays, Why I Write by Amish Tripathi and Joan Didion. Writers are compulsive people. They can't live without writing. That's the whole problem. They write because they have something in their heart, which if they don't give expression to it, their heart will explode. That's a kind of, they may write and earn some money. That's a different story. But when they write something and give it to the world, they feel satisfied. That is their fulfillment. That is their meaning of life for them. We also have an essay by Virginia Woolf, who is a great writer from Britain. She's a feminist writer. and she deals with the death of the moth. She presents a vivid picture, a clear picture of how a moth dies, unable to fly, unable to move from the place where it will fell down. In the second 4 weeks, we have 17 lectures, we have poetry and also drama and one-act plays. We call one-act plays separately because this drama has only one act, whereas normally we'll have 2 acts or 3 acts, 4 acts or 5 acts, or as in the case of Girish Karnad's play, some scenes will be there. 13 scenes we have in Tuklak. That means it's a longer play. Whereas one-act plays are shorter plays, just for 15 to 20 minutes or so. Whereas a full-length drama maybe for 1 hour or 2 hours, depends on the length of the play. We have some examples of poetry from Wordsworth, that's called Resolution and Independence. Here again, when an old man living alone can earn some money in difficult situations and support himself, why not we? That's a question. Life is so full of challenges for all people, not just for one or two. All of us, whether we are in young age or old age, middle age, whether we live in urban world or rural world, whether we have employment, no employment, all of us face, whether we are married or unmarried, all of us have challenges to face every day. The only thing is, do we have that mental makeup or mental stamina to support ourselves? Whatever situations we are in, doesn't matter. One should be able to support himself or herself. That can happen only when we feel that we have the strength within to support ourselves. Similarly, we have Longfellow. He also tells us we are born here, we are born to die, but then we have some tasks for us. We have to leave some footprints on the sands of time so that people who come after us can see these traces and find some guidance through our life. That's why when we read biographies and autobiographies, some historical books, we learn how to live our life. Such great writers, they faced some challenges, they learned how to overcome, and we also learn certain strategies or tricks or tips from them to live our own life. In today's life, we have the problem of working throughout the day. 24/7 is the order of the day. Where do we have time for leisure? In 1911, W.H. Davis wrote this poem, Leisure. At that time itself, he felt that human beings did not have time for relaxation. And today, it is more relevant than any other time. So occasionally, we need to look at nature, look at trees, plants, animals, birds, everything, water bodies, and help ourselves to relax and feel happy with ourselves. Just a sense of relax, forget ourselves, forget our sorrows and other things, and live life, relaxed life for a while at least. That kind of relaxation is required for us to regain energy to live the next day. Similarly, we live among people. We all the time quarrel with each other, particularly with our neighbors. That's what Robert Frost discusses in his poem Mending Wall. Do we need a boundary wall between neighbors? And there is a response which says, yes, we need. There is another response which says, no, we don't need. There are some arguments put forward to us. Frost himself does not give us any answer. It is for us to choose. Good fences make good neighbors. One person says, another person says, there is something that doesn't love your wall. In nature, there is no limitation. There is no boundary. Why do we create a boundary? That's what another person asks. Then when we move to Dickens's poem, A Narrow Fellow in the Grass, it's again the world of nature. A snake is moving in the grass, and that may look like a rope or something like a plant. But then life is full of such treacherous moments in our life. We can't take it for granted. Life is not very simple. There are dangers lurking in nature and in our human society as well. And Dickinson was a great mystic poet who understood life in her own way, metaphysical way rather. Then we come to Kamala Das, our Indian poet, a confessional poet. She has written about words. We deal with words all the time, every day. And she believes that words are like branches growing from her mind and body, and they engulf her. They put her in something like a knot, so she is unable to free herself. Words are like a prison. That's how she feels about it. And similarly, we have Louis Glick, a very well-known American poet. She has written the poem called "The Mountain," where she deals with the myth of Sisyphus. Sisyphus is a character who is doomed to push a boulder from the bottom of a hill to the top of the hill. But he does it. He pushes the boulder, that is a piece of rock, to the bottom. But just before reaching the pinnacle, the boulder or rock falls down. So he repeatedly does this. So that is where we have this absurdity. When we do this routine task every day, we wake up in the morning, have our breakfast, go to job, have our lunch, come back home, then have our dinner, then sleep. And this routine continues. There is no end to it. What is so special about this routine? Do we have some meaning in this repetitive life? That is a question raised by Glick, that all of us know that there is no other way. We have to repeatedly live this life every day, almost in the same way. But then we can find a way to make some meaning when we make some effort to understand life and contribute to posterity, contribute to our fellow human beings, help some people in some way or other. We also now have the last poem, Sujata Bhatt's poem, Search for My Tongue. Again, this poem deals with mother tongue and foreign tongue. When we learn another language, we tend to forget our own mother tongue. But in course of time, we realize that our mother tongue is always there. It can never be replaced or completely destroyed from our mind. Suddenly, one day it erupts and it comes to tell us, hey, I am here. I am your mother tongue. Don't forget me. Even if you forget me, I will never go away from your mind. So what we learn in our childhood as mother tongue can never be removed from our mind. Well, she's a diasporic writer, born in India, had education in US, and married to a person in Germany, lives in Germany right now. But she has, after so many years, she has written this poem, Search for My Tongue. It comes out of her mind automatically. Now we move on to drama, a play by Vish Karnad, a well-known Indian playwright. He is no more. He is known for many plays like Tuplak, Hayavadana, The Fire and the Rain. There are so many other plays, a dozen plays he has written. All of them are very famous. And this play is a historical play. It deals with the 14th century Muslim king Muhammad bin Tughluq. He was a very intelligent person, brilliant man, brilliant scholar. But then his rule of 20 years or 26 years became a very significant event in the history of India, because such a great man with great forethought brought so many schemes to the country, but then he failed. People did not understand his plans, or they misunderstood, they exploited, and then everything ended in some chaos. He also could not bring about the changes that he wanted. So through this play, we can understand that even a great scholar cannot rule a country with some kind of conviction that he can change the country or transform the country into a better place. That's the kind of idea we get. Again, it is an existential play. It has some question on the meaning of life. Can we really have meaning of life? The history is repetitive. We don't learn from history. We do the same mistakes. We commit the same mistakes again and again. So we are unable to move out of the problems that we have created for ourselves as a whole of humanity. We have discussed this play Tughluq in 5 lectures. We have discussed the characters and characterization, sources, structure, form, themes, and techniques. There are some moments of humor, a very interesting humorous moments you will have in this play. You can read the play and understand the language. The language is very simple. There are so many ironical moments in the play. What he intends, he is unable to achieve. what some good programs or initiatives he introduces, but then crooks like Azam and Aziz, they misuse his plans and turn against him. At the end, he is almost senseless. He doesn't know where he is. We have many symbols, and for in further analysis, we have focused on this human relationships, less takeaways, some comparisons, and all that we have focused. In the case of the two one-act plays, we have considered them for in two lessons. Two lessons for Chekhov and two for Singh. And the case of the bear, it is a comedy. It's a delightful comedy. Just you read and enjoy it. Here is a lady, Popova. Her husband has passed away. She is mourning, but her husband has borrowed some money. And so Smirnov comes to collect the money. And during the conversation between the two, they understand that they love each other and they want to get married. So look at the woman in the beginning. She says, no, I am devoted to my husband. My husband was untruthful to me, disloyal to me. But then I am devoted to him. I am faithful to him. I don't want to speak to anyone. So she lives in her room and she doesn't want to interact with anybody. But when Smirnov comes and stays in her house, no, I will not go from this house until I collect the money. Then she is bound to speak with him. And when they speak with each other, they understand that they have some liking for each other. And that's how the story ends. The bear refers to Smirnov, who behaves like a bear, that is uncivilized person. He enters a house without permission, stays there without permission, quarrels with the lady, and does so many things. That's why he is presented as a bear. But then at the end, we see that he's just like a mouse. He stays there and he feels happy to be there in this. He also has seen several women, but this lady is something fascinating for him. So he wants to conquer her, control her, and he does that at the end. In the case of Singh's story, it's a tragedy, Riders to the Sea. We have a character called Maurya. She's the mother. She has 6 sons. And these sons are lost to the sea. And her husband also was lost in the sea. And she quarrels with the sea, saying, you have taken away all my sons. Riders to the sea, that is, they go into the sea for some trade or commerce with the rest of the world. She lives on an island. So the only way in which they can connect with the rest of the world is to use boats. And whenever boats come, these people go out the mainland and come back. But while sailing by the boat, some of them die when they are caught in the storm or cyclone and things like that. The sea is a supportive element. Sea helps people and also it takes the lives of people. Fisherman's life is the best example for us to understand. The sea is a goddess for the fishermen. At the same time, the fishermen die in the sea when they go on fishing. Now we come to the 4 weeks of lectures. Here again, we have something lectures. This is where we have to spend a little time. The case of the first 2 weeks, first two sections that we focused on, we have seen them in the first 2 live sessions. Now let's see the novel section. We have chosen to discuss one novel called The White Tiger by Aravind Adiga. It's also a very interesting novel. There is a character called Balram. He is from Lakshman Gar, a village in Bihar and near Dhanbad. He is interested in education. He attends school, but then his family people don't allow him to continue studies because his father had died of tuberculosis. His hospital or a nearby hospital did not have doctors or nurses to protect him. So when the father dies, the other family members force Balram into some job. So particularly in a tea shop he works, and then he's asked to go to Dhanbad where his brother works, and there he works in a tea shop. At the same time, he learns driving a car, and then he becomes a driver in one rich household there. That's where he meets Ashok, the landlord's son, who is from America. Ashok is married to Pinky Madam, and they have some quarrels with each other. And Ashok is given the job of going to Delhi to deliver some money to politicians as a means of corruption to run their business, coal business in Dhanbad. And that's where Balram learns about the corrupt ways of business people and politicians. He asks himself, I work so much, but I don't get any money. But these people are giving bribe to politicians and making so much money, living comfortably. And he sees the kind of high-rise buildings, all kinds of construction works are going on, luxurious life. And that is because of the influence of globalization. Our economy was opened in 1991, and after that, many changes have happened. Good roads, good buildings, and all kinds of facilities we have. And so Balram is attracted to the luxurious way of life, and he thinks that he also has to come up in life. But how long can he work as a driver and become somewhat rich? It is not at all possible. So one day he decides to kill Ashok, and he takes away the money meant for bribe to a politician, and takes the money and runs away to Bangalore and sets up a business called taxi business, and he becomes very successful. He also goes along with one of his relatives called Dharam, and lives there in Bangalore, and he becomes so successful that he is expanding his business into education and real estate. And the whole story is presented to us in the form of 7 emails written to Wen Jiabo, the Chinese premier. Remember at the time when Jiabo was expected to visit Bangalore and Delhi, so he was writing, do you want to know about our country? He is writing, if you want to know about our country, believe me, I am writing to you. This is a kind of India of light and India of darkness we have. All that we tell about, all that we project to the world is not true. And we have so many people suffering in darkness, particularly in the northern states like Bihar. Comparatively, the people in southern states, they live a decent life. And he makes a comment, that is the writer makes a comment, a man has a choice to become good or to remain good in the south, whereas in the north, particularly in Bihar, a man has no choice. He has to be bad or he has to suffer. Only that is the only way for him. So this is a beautiful novel. It won the Booker Prize, and some people appreciated, some people did not like it because it shows India in poor light and all that. But then it has its own merit, and we can appreciate the kind of impact globalization has on Indian society. So, like the drama, we have analyzed, we have given an introduction to the author, the novel, then characters, introduce the characters like Krishna, Balram. Krishna is, by the way, the teacher for Balram in the school. He doesn't teach at all. He sleeps in the class. He chews pawn. He spits on the school wall and all that. And inspector comes. A school inspector comes and identifies Balram as the white tiger, a rare species. That's how we have the title for the novel. Later, when Balram goes to Delhi, he visits the zoo and he has an encounter with the white tiger. There is actually a white tiger in the Delhi zoo, and he faints there. The same thing happened in the school, where he fainted because of a lizard in the school, and his father comes there and kills that lizard. And his father tells him, you are the one who can make a difference in our life. Study, improve yourself, become somebody in life. That is the motivation for Balram to follow Vijay, the conductor in the village. Initially he wanted to become a conductor. Later, when he went to Dhanbad, he saw the drivers making some money. He wanted to become a driver. And for that, even from his own money, he's got some salary, but his grandmother, Kusum, wanted all money from him. She did not allow him to have some money for himself. So he had to give 300 rupees as fee for the learning of driving. He had to struggle hard. So Indian family is a very challenging situation for individuals to come up. Or if one is engrossed or loyal to the family, one cannot come up in life. All the time throughout one's life, one has to work hard, hard, hard throughout one's life. But one will not have an opportunity to rise in life. That's a kind of story that we have in the novel. It's a wonderful novel. One can read it. There is no way in which you can substitute reading the novel by telling a story or reading the summary of the novel. Now we move on to the short stories. The Guy de Maupassant is a French short story writer. He is known for many stories like The Necklace, and we have chosen this less known story, The Dispenser of Holy Water, because it deals with a family situation where a mother and father lose their son John, and then they go in search of him to Paris, and they finally meet him after 20 years or so. So this is a short story, but deals with a long time of 20 years of search by these parents, and then finally they meet the son, and at the moment of recognition is something very striking for us. It's wonderful to read the novel to see how parents can recognize their child and how they can feel so happy after finding their lost son. Then when we come to a British writer, Catherine Mansfield, who is also well known for her many stories. A Cup of Tea is again a popular story. It deals with the economic disparity between two classes of people, poor people and rich people. Poor people don't have money to buy a cup of tea, whereas rich people have money to buy luxurious items, some antique items, which they keep at home as showpieces. And the interaction between Rosemary Field and Miss Smith is something that it will touch your heart when you read it. Miss Smith asks Rosemary, "Ma'am, may I have the price of a cup of tea?" And she asks, "You don't have money? Incredible. How extraordinary." In cold winter, she shivers and she doesn't have anything to eat. That is, Miss Smith doesn't have anything to eat, whereas Rosemary has come to buy some antique item, a little box she wants to buy, and the price of that little box is some 26 guineas. And her husband is a rich man. He allows her to buy anything that she wants. But when Miss Smith goes to Rosemary's house on the command of Rosemary, she doesn't want to. Miss Smith doesn't want to go, but Rosemary says, "I will take you to my house and take care of you." And she's afraid. And then Rosemary, because of the jealousy created in her by Philip, her husband, she sends out Miss Smith. Initially, she wants to give more money, but then in course of time, she reduces. She gives you a piece of coin that is some cents, British cents, and then she is relieved. She feels insecure because of Philip's appreciation of Miss Smith. Pretty. Am I pretty? That's how she asks, and she longs for recognition. Rosemary Field longs for recognition from her husband, whereas Miss Smith longs for some, not recognition, just for some cup of tea to live her life. The next story actions will be taken is a wonderful story again. We all look for jobs. We tell lies we give lies, falsehood as answers to the questions in our entrance examinations or interviews. And then when we get our job, we don't like our job and we don't know which kind of job we like. In this story, the narrator finds a job as a mourner when he walks along the coffin of his own master, Alfred Woodsy Dull. And some company notices that he's a good mourner and they appoint him as a professional mourner, and this man then takes care of orphans and all that. He pays tribute to people unknown people. He pays with his own money to buy some garland and places it on the graveyard of people who are not taken care of by anybody else. So action will be taken. Action will be taken is finally there is no action. That's our life. That's an ironical story, satirical story. We work 24 hours, but then at the end, what do? That's nothing. That's what the writer Hendrik Boll tells us. The Next story, the third bank of the river, is again a canonical story, a very powerful story, well-known story. It deals with the relationship between the son and the father. The father leaves the family, he goes into a boat, and then the family is left alone. The son always thinks about the father, tries to meet him, but the son cannot have any contact with him. And at one point of time, the son says, "Come on, father, I will take your place and stay in the water, come back home." And one day it appears that the father comes to the shore, but then the son runs away, he becomes mad. He is not, he's afraid of the father, so he runs away. Whether it is real or unreal, that we don't know. That's why this Portuguese writer, rather Brazilian writer, Rosa, is a good example of magic realism. Something mysterious about this, which is the third bank of the river. We normally, a river has two banks, one on one side, on the other side. But in between, what is the third bank? That is a boat that is used by the father in the story. The boat becomes a third bank, and that is always unsteady, moving, full of dangers. The boat can capsize at any time. And then we have some stories again in our the last week, last but 1 week, the one Indian story by Joshi, the letter. Nowadays we have lost the habit of writing letters, but in those days when Joshi was living, he saw people writing. I too have written many letters in my life, but here is a father who is waiting for a letter from his daughter for 5 years. At the end, he dies without receiving the letter. But then after his death, a letter comes from Miriam, the daughter of Coachman Ali, and that letter is delivered at his graveyard. That's a very moving story. You will understand our parents are interested in knowing about the welfare of our life, and we don't care for our parents. Even if when we have time, when we have mobile phone, we don't like to, or we don't have time to call our parents or close ones to tell them how we are, what we don't inquire about their health and all that. So caring for someone like a pair, your father and daughter, just a connection between the two can help us live our life peacefully and end our life peacefully. In the case of Coach Manali, he dies with dissatisfaction because he has not received any letter from his daughter Miriam. He doesn't know what has happened, how she is. Just the simple question of how she is, he doesn't know. So he goes to a post office every day for 5 years, and he is mocked at by the clerks there. But then there is a kind man called Gokul Bai, and he helps Coach Manali. So Coach Manali gives 5 guineas to him, and then golden coins to him, and then requests him, in the name of God, I give this to you. Please be faithful. Whenever you receive a letter from my daughter Miriam, come and deliver it on my graveyard. And he fulfills that wish of Coach Manali. And the postmaster also understands the heart of a father, because his own daughter was admitted to the hospital. He was waiting for a letter, and he didn't receive the letter for a few days. And then when there was a letter, he finds that that letter was addressed to Coach Manali. That's where he wants to know about Coach Manali. And both the postmaster and Gokul Bai go to the graveyard and deliver the letter. So the letter is not just a piece of paper, it is a heart. It connects, it carries some love and affection to another person, from the daughter to the father. So we need to respect the feelings of people and communicate with people now and then, occasionally. The next story is again a well-known story by a great writer in our country. He is known as children's author, but he deals with human problems. The boy who broke the bank. Banking is not a childish play, but then he deals with this a little boy who works in a bank as a sweeper. When he doesn't get the salary at the end of the month, he feels unhappy. He meets a manager. The manager doesn't listen to him. After the 20th of the next month, he doesn't receive the salary, and so he tells his friend Sitaram, and then that boy tries to find a job for him. So some kind of miscommunication is spread through the town, that the bank doesn't have money to pay the salary of even its own staff. And when everybody goes to bank to collect money, the bank doesn't really have money. And the owner of the bank said Govindram is not in town, he cannot be communicated or he cannot be contacted. And this kind of false message or rumor has ruined the bank because the manager did not listen to the boy simply because the boy is from a lower class or a poor family, and he disregarded the poor boy. And so if you disregard a poor person like this, your bank or your profession or your business can collapse. So human beings are more important than anything else in the world. Now we come to the next story, Sharmaji by Anjana Pachana. Here again, we have a workplace environment where we have a Sharma, a clerk in the purchase department. He comes late to the office almost every day, 14 times of this month. A clerk tells him, you are coming so late, take care of yourself, otherwise you may be in trouble. But then Sharmaji becomes angry and shouts at him, I am 25 years senior to you. And then the problem is escalated because he doesn't sit in his office. He goes to canteen, he walks here and there, he goes with another person, Jagdish Gupta, he gossips, he talks ill about all the managers and all that. And when one day when his own manager, Mr. Barwankar, gives a charge sheet to him, explain why you were absent in your seat, then the problem becomes serious. He takes the help of one Adish Singh, the general secretary of the trade union. And then finally the problem is resolved by one Ms. Das, HR manager or personal officer. She listens to him, understands him, and then tries to help him, recognize him as a human being. And she appreciates him and his writing poetry and all that. Then only things become normal. So when we don't recognize each other as a human being, when we work in an office, when we ignore others, when we become indifferent to each other, our office life becomes troublesome for all of us. One employee like Sharmaji can make life miserable in an office. Everybody starts feeling bad about the whole situation because he is given a charge sheet by his own manager, Barwankar. So how to deal with a difficult employee is a question that you have in the story. And also how a woman can come up in life. Like Barwankar is a manager, Ms. Das is also a manager. But then there's a difference between the two. Ms. Das is much more successful in dealing with this man, Sharmaji, than Mr. Barwankar. And finally, we come to the story True Love. It's by Isaac Asimov. It's a science fiction story. We have one Joe, the computer programmer, computer program, and another one, and the programmer is Milton Davidson. Milton Davidson is about 40 years old. He is not married. He has created a perfect program called Joe, which takes care of all his needs. He analyzes all the problems, solves the problems of the world. His own problem is he's not married, though he's 40 years old. So he tells Joe that his program, find out a good girl for me. Then he gives some instructions, remove all men from the list. Then the program is connected to the database of the world. Like today we have Aadhaar, so PAN card, and so many other databases in our country. And I think all over the world, people have some identity card which has all the data about us. So Joe, the program is connected to the database of all the world and removes all men first, and then all women above 40, all women below 25, and then some features are some elimination process is done, and then finally some 227 women are identified, and then some interviews are conducted by Milton, and then he is not happy. So Joe finally tells Milton, you have to give me some more details about yourself because I am going to select for you. So in that way, Joe gains all the capabilities of Milton. And then some 10 years ago, Milton had committed some crime. Joe, having learned about it, informs the police, selects before Milton meeting his selected lady, that is Charity Jones. Charity Jones is found to be perfect match for Milton, but then Joe betrays the master, and then Joe waits for Charity Jones to meet her on the Valentine Day. Imagine this is the machine. This is the world in which machine masters human beings. Machine controls human beings. We are at the mercy of machines. That's how our writer Isaac Asimov has written. It's called True Love, and it is ironical that the true love is manipulated by Joe, and then they are Milton and Charity Jones. They are unable to meet. So with that, we come to the end of the selected text that we have for this story. But in the last week, we have done some discussions with teachers from the local colleges. They have their own experience of what a prose piece or essay is and what kind of text they have taught. Similarly, some poems that they have taught in the class and how they evaluate poetry, answers and all that. Similarly, we have a wonderful lecture on drama. Professor specialized in drama, and he has shared his experiences with us. And lastly, we have novel. A colleague, a professor, again has done work on novel, and she has shared her experience of teaching novel with us. And I hope you can listen to all of them and have multiple dimensions of how we approach literature for living our life. Oh, without looking at all this, I have conveyed this. I'm so sorry. We have the details here. In the White Tiger, we have some characters like impoverished class, poor people, Balram and his family members, teachers. Krishna is one teacher, driving lesson teacher is one, and then one fellow colleague, fellow driver, Vitiligo is another instructor or teacher. One bookseller becomes a teacher for Balram. Then landowning class, Ashok and his family members. The political class, the conductor Vijay becomes a politician later on, and he also visits Bangalore. Then we have bureaucratic class like the police commissioner who helps Balram in the novel to establish himself as a call taxi service provider. We have some teams like globalization, development, rural and urban divide, government corruption. The structure is fluid. Two divisions we have in the novel, that is North India and South India. But all these stories are told, given to us through 7 emails. Some important images also we have in this novel. One is a white tiger. It's a rare animal that comes once a while and brings about some changes. And the rooster coop is a very important image in this novel, where we find some chicken being kept in a box, and they are all aware of the fact that the next chicken is going to be cut, but then they don't help each other to escape from the suffering. This is a typical Indian life of poor people in India. And then we have short story Western masters. I have dealt with them all, what kind of people, characters, and situations we have in these stories. Next, we have Eastern masters like Joshi, Ruskin Bond, and Anjana Pachana. Here also we have this characters, some important characters, not all of them. And we have discussed all of them here for us. And we also mentioned about this discussion 1 and 2. Prose is non-metrical, prose is metrical. And even some poetry is not metrical, because we have free verse. We have to understand that. And then we have drama. Drama is to be performed on stage. Tuklak is a play which has been performed several times. Similarly, The Bear and also The Riders to the Sea, they have all been performed in different theaters. Theaters here means drama theaters or museums, like one we have in Chennai Egmore Museum. Chennai, we have one theater where only plays are staged. And then we have the novel, which is a realistic novel, but it has some elements which are not realistic. It is self-referential. That's where we will find realistic and postmodernistic elements coming together in this novel. We have a passage from the White Tiger for you. I have this passage here for you because I want you to understand how you are going to analyze the given passage. It will be a very short passage because in the screen you have to see the passage and then understand and write. So if we have a long passage, you will have to change the screen or move up and down. It will be difficult for you. So we have chosen a very short passage for you. You have to focus on the theme, language, device, and human relationships. Just write one or two sentences for each of these themes. Write an introductory line and then write a concluding line and give a good description of the analysis that you have done. For example, in this, we have this rooster coop actually. Go to Old Delhi behind Jama Masjid and look at the way they keep chickens there in the market. Hundreds of pale hens and brightly colored roosters stuffed tightly into wire mesh cages, packed as tightly as worms in a belly, pecking each other and shifting on each other, jostling just for breathing space. The whole cage giving off a horrible stench, the stench of terrified feathered flesh. On the wooden desk above the scoop sits a grinning young butcher, showing off the flesh and organs of a recently chopped up chicken, still oleaginous, with a coating of dark blood. The roosters in the coop smell the blood from above. They see the organs of their brothers lying around them. They know they are next, yet they do not rebel. They do not try to get out of the coop. The very same thing is done with human beings in this country. When we appoint people as drivers, we inquire about their families, we have some data about them. So if a driver does something wrong, like stealing money or killing some person in the family, the entire family will be killed. That's how things are reported in Bihar, as shown in this story or in this novel. So what is the theme of this passage? The whole theme that is discussed in the novel. If you focus on the theme that is given in the passage given to you, that is enough. You don't have to worry about the entire novel or entire short story. Servitude, or working class, the suffering of working people through the image. So you have language, it's a simple language. It describes the suffering of people. It is evocative because you are able to see the suffering. And language, one particular word is there, oleaginous. Normally we don't use this word, but it means oily, thick oil, thick viscous liquid that you can see leaking from the chickens in the box. And then the literary device. The literary device is something like a symbol of exploitation. The chickens are exploited by the master, one who cuts, and similarly, some boss or some family head or our society exploits us, pushes us in the same place where we are. We are not allowed to come out of the imprisoned life. That's the whole idea. It is given in the form of a story, an anecdotal story. We have several such versions in our country, and probably other countries to have such experiences. Then, what is the kind of relationship that we have in this passage? It is all about exploitation of human beings. One exploits another. It goes on endlessly. Here is, oh no, it is, I should have changed it. It is a passage from Sharmaji. The short story. You can see here, this is a passage where we find the relationship between Ms. Das and Sharmaji. When he has his problem, he goes and meets this lady. So he enters and look at the way in which the lady receives him. Coming, Sharmaji, please sit down. Sharma sighed and said. He passed his hand over his brow. It's so hard, he said. How do you expect us to work with these power cuts, Ms. Das? In Delhi, those days, in our country, I think in every part of the country, we had power cuts very often and we were expected to work in offices. So Sharmaji tells this lady, what to do, Sharmaji? She replies, that is how life is in Delhi. Would you like a glass of cold water? Look at this. She offers him first a seat and then some water. Certainly, he gulped down the water. What advantages there are to being an officer? You have flasks of cold water in your room. We poor workers have to go to the canteen to drink water. And when you go there, and sometimes sometimes sees that we are not at our workplace, we are accused of shirking work. He returned the glass. Thank you, ma'am. So she receives him comfortably and makes him feel comfortable. And so they talk with each other. They establish some kind of human relationship of being a boss. And it's true that Ms. Das is an officer and Sharmaji is a clerk, but then there is some understanding between the two that they are common people, ordinary people working for an office, and they should help each other. So we have the theme of office work or uncooperative employee in this passage. The whole story has that idea, and language is very simple. It is conversational. There is less of description than more and more of dialogues. The literary device, again, you can see at least one or two. If you are able to identify like this, it's good. In poetry, you may find more. In prose pieces, you may find less, like metaphor, simile, and all that you may find, or symbol. Irony you may find in prose piece. In this case, gulp down the water. It is a picturesque image, gulped down. So you can call it something metaphorically. An image is created through this word. He drank the water so quickly with some sound. That's an idea that we have through this passage. And the relationship is between manager and employee. It is more cooperative, more understanding, more empathetic. Whereas between Mr. Barwankar and Sharmaji, it is more of command and threat. He gives him, if you don't do your job, I'll remove you from your job. Just by giving some memos and then creating a file and then accusing you of your poor clerk or latecomer and lazy fellow and all that. But in his early days, when he joined the company, he had one appreciation for doing good job. He did not get any promotion up for 25 years. He remained at the same place, and that's why he becomes dull and he is frustrated, and so he is unable to perform his job with some sense of satisfaction. So whenever we have some people in offices, when they are not promoted for many years, we cannot expect good work from them. Such general reflection we can do and write our analysis of the passage. And lastly, if you have completed all of them, all 12 assignments you have completed, you had true false questions, you had multiple choice questions, you had MSQs, that is multiple selection questions. Even the last week you had a prose piece and also a poetry piece where you were given more of a comprehension passage, comprehension question and answer. You could not write a descriptive answer because we need to evaluate them through the computer. That's the only constraint we have. But in our end semester examination, we will have a passage, but you have to write the answer, type the answer. You can't just choose. Model question paper is there in the portal. Please look at it. This is the structure we have. We will have 100 marks and 44 questions will be 44, 10, 15. I thought it was 44. I see it is more here. But if you look at the question paper, you'll understand it. So we have 10 true-false questions, 15 multiple choice questions, and then 15 or yeah, I have to check it again. 50, right? Okay. But number of questions I have to check. 15, each one will carry 2 marks in all these cases. And then critical appreciation, 4 passages will be there. Each one will carry 5 marks. So totally 100 marks. In the case of the 4 short passages, you will have some passages, as we have explained. You have to write down, type the answers, and you cannot type more than 150 words. So please be careful. Think about your answers and then write your answers on the screen. So we have come to the end of our session, live session 3. And we have seen first we saw the answers to the questions raised by our students. And then we saw the outcomes modules, 4 weeks, first 4 weeks, second 4 weeks, third 4 weeks. And in third 4 weeks, we saw novel, short story 1 and 2, and then discussion. And finally, we have come to our assignments and model question paper. Now, if we have some questions, please ask me. I'm sorry, I have taken more time than required. Normally, we complete it in 1 hour, but today it has taken more time for us. Hello? Can you hear me, please?
Hello?
Yes, please.
Yeah, good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Yeah, everything is absolutely clear, crystal clear, rather. I mean, there's no room for any doubt or any ambiguity, sir. Everything is clear.
Thank you.
Perfect, perfect.
Still, if anybody wants to ask any question, they can ask me.
Yes, it was a wonderful session, sir. Very nice actually. Just one doubt at my end. Can we have a recording of this session? Probably.
Yeah, it will be available to you on YouTube. You can the YouTube
okay.
is given to you.
Okay.
It is
That's
given to you in the announcement. Please click that, you will get it. It is recorded and it will be available for all.
Okay. Very nice. That's very nice. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much.
Welcome. Anybody else? Anybody else? Bhakti Natu, Sagar, Myra, Shahrukh, Zaitra, Kashyap, anyone? No problem. Adi. Then can we end our session now? Thank you so much for all of you to have joined us and listened to us. Hope this session has been useful, and I wish you all the best for your end semester examination. Please do well.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Welcome. So I am leaving now. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.